if we are talking about a story of success, I must give full credit to my parents and especially my mother. I wanted always to become a sea captain, a ship captain. In 1963, if I remember well, Abdel Nasser insisted that our trucks be in the military parade for the top people of Europe and other places in the world came to see the factory. I remember was one of them, Ceausescu, for example, at that time President of Romania, came to see the factory, Boumediene, and many others. I don't remember all of them. So in late 1967, I became the president of this company. As I told you, I was the president, I appointed president of the Federation of Egyptian Industry. As my job, I represented the Federation in the ILO conference, which is always held in June in Geneva, and also was elected. I was the president of one of these conferences, which was a big, for Egypt, it was a big success actually.
I'm Rانيا, العزبى, and this is Story of Success. Welcome to all our viewers inside Egypt and around the world. Each time we'll be bringing you compelling and inspiring profiles. Each and every gets us closer to people who have the power to bring in change and make a difference. We'll be bringing you the full story behind the name. Today we have a multifaceted personality. He's engaging, internationally successful in both ways. As an engineer and a photographer, right now we'll be painting his picture.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for hosting me in this program. And if we are talking about the story of success, I must give full credit to my parents and especially my mother. They were backing me from the very beginning, and this was a very important factor in my success. So I want to start by this. Now, when I was young, unfortunately I was rather weak child, so I couldn't go to the kindergarten or the very primary schools, and I started immediately with the primary schools. And this resulted that I was always young in all the classes that I attended. I got my توجيهية or the secondary school certificate at the age of 15, and I got my BSc from the engineering faculty of engineering Alexandria University at the age of 20, which was a record really. And I got the certificate for BSc engineering with distinction.
Yeah, I just wanted to know what got you into engineering, and later on what made you make this twist into photography.
What got me in engineering? Actually, I was very, very fond of the sea, and I wanted always to become a sea captain, a ship captain, because I was very fond of the sea, and we were always living on board of the sea in Alexandria. But my parents refused, and because I got a very high grades in my توجيهية in my secondary school, I could easily go into engineering. So that was my second choice, and I submitted to the University of Fuad at that time, or Cairo University now, and I was admitted immediately to the Faculty of Engineering. And this is how I entered the Faculty of Engineering in Cairo.
Now another twist to photography. What was that thing that made you make this twist to photography?
No, photography comes later, and I will tell you the story. Well, I continued in the Cairo University for 2 years, and then at that time the Alexandria University was inaugurated, so I shifted my studies to Alexandria, and at that time it was named Farouk University.
Yeah.
So I changed my studies to Farouk University, and I got my BSc in 1946 from Farouk University with distinction. After that, I wanted to work in a company actually in Alexandria, and submitted many applications to companies in Alexandria, but I was once surprised by reading Al-Ahram at that time, and reading that the Minister of Public Work, Osman Muharram at that time, decided to employ the first 3 graduates from Farouk and Fuad University in the Ministry of Work, and send them to get doctor's degree abroad. And I found my name one of the 3. And that was a big surprise, a very good surprise for me, of course. And actually, a few days later, I was called to go to the Ministry of Public Work in Cairo, where they told me that I was really appointed in the ministry, and I am a candidate to go and get the doctorate degree from any university to my choice. Well, my first choice was go to the United States, but at that time, after the war, the United States universities were all full, so my second choice was Zurich in Switzerland. And so in October 46, I found myself in Zurich as a student for attending or for getting the doctorate degree from Zurich University, or at that time it was called ETH Technische Hochschule or Technical High School. It was a very renowned and very, very celebrated university at that time for engineering. So I started my studies there to get my doctoral degree. And after about 4.5 years, I succeeded in 1951 to get my doctoral degree in engineering from Zurich in the Technical High School. This is what regards my studies. After that, I worked for 3 months in a Swiss company to get practice, and I went back to Cairo, supposedly as an employee in the Ministry of Public. However, well, I forgot to tell you that when I got the doctorate degree, I got a letter from the Minister of Public Work, Osman Muharram at that time, congratulating me and telling me that I got the 5th degree in the ministry, which was at that time a good degree at that time. So I went to the ministry to get my job in the 5th degree, but they told me, sorry, they appointed me before going in the mission, so I have to be appointed in the 6th degree, which I refused, and I went to Alexandria University, and they accepted me to join the staff in the Alexandria University. Back to photography. Actually, when I was in Zurich, I bought a camera and I started photographing. As a normal photograph, I mean, I didn't give it much time at that time. However, I read once an advertisement in the newspaper in Zurich that ACFA is buying color slides and paying a good price for them. So I decided to try my luck. I sent them about 10 color slides, and to my surprise, they bought 3 of them and paid me well for them. That was the beginning, because it was very encouraging. At that time I was short of money, so getting some good money from ACFA, I found another channel, photography, to earn some money to help me with the study and living in Zurich. And this is how I started, actually, loving photography and taking it as a hobby all over my life after that. Coming back to Alexandria, I joined the camera club, and again, to my surprise, I got as a first winner in an exhibition they arranged in Alexandria, which encouraged me more and more to adapt photography as my hobby parallel to my work.
Did you manage to reconcile successfully both of them together?
Well, of course, I work at university was top priority. Teaching, so I had to read much. I have to make big effort to be to the standard of assistant professor in the automotive department in the Alexandria University. However, parallel to that, I managed to find some time for photography. However, not much time, so my photography declined a bit at that time. Now, in the Alexandria University, I got to know Dr. Aziz Sidki, who became the Minister of Industry in 1956. As soon as he became Minister of Industry, he contacted me and insisted that I join him in the Ministry of Industry. I was a bit reluctant because I am from Alexandria, my whole family was in Alexandria. I was married at that time, I had a flat in Alexandria, so it was very difficult for me to go to Cairo, but he insisted and I decided to go. So I shifted my life from Alexandria to Cairo, which was a big shift. And I started my career with Dr. Aziz Sidki in the Ministry of Industry in 1956. After that, I was delegated to the office of the Vice President at that time, Baghdadi, and I went with him to Syria for some time, for about 1 year, which was also a very challenging job, but I think I did well with him. And then after the coalition between Syria and Egypt failed, I went back to Cairo and started again working in the Ministry of Industry. Back to the Ministry of Industry, I started working in a project that was announced at that time to produce trucks and buses in Egypt. That was the very first project in the automotive line. There was an invitation for all oil companies to come and join in a project to produce buses and trucks in Egypt. I was member of the delegation which made the whole study and later on made the contract with the German company to start producing trucks and buses in Egypt. The contract was signed in 1961, and it was foreseen at that time that we come up to a local percentage of about 90% of the unit truck or bus in Egypt, half of it inside the factory and half of it ancillary industry or Egyptian sub-suppliers, which were assumed to start also producing parts and supply it to the main sub-company, which was founded at that time and was called the Nasr Automotive Company. And I remember very well that I went with the German directors of the German company to meet General Abdel Nasser, or President Abdel Nasser at the time, to present the project for him. So he asked us how many years it will take us to come to the maximum percentage of 93%. So we told him 5 years. He said, no, I want it to be done in 3 years, which was a big challenge, of course. However, in 1961, the Nasr Automotive Company started working on the project for trucks and buses. 1 year later, the Ministry of Industry, according also to the wish of President Abdel Nasser, announced a project, in fact 2 projects, one to produce cars, which went to, also it was a global invitation for all global companies, and it went to Fiat at the end. And in 1962 we made the contract with Fiat to produce cars. To achieve about 87% of the car local in Egypt, in 5 years, half of it inside the factory and half of it ancillary industries or suppliers from Egypt. So that was the second biggest project. At the same time also, we got the request also to start producing agricultural tractors. So again, an invitation was issued to world companies, and it went at the end to a Yugoslav company called IMR. And we signed a contract with IMR to produce tractors, agricultural tractors, simultaneously with the trucks and with the cars. Not only that, but we added to them a truck for trailers for trucks, with the German company. So all of a sudden, a Nasr company, which was started for one project only, had in hand 4 big projects, which were started all in 1962. At that time I was appointed, I left the Ministry of Industry and I was appointed as planning director in the Nasr Automotive Company. And we started working in a place called Wadi Houf, which was allocated to us, a big area of, I remember, about 160,000 square meters. We started simultaneously building the factory, producing, training workers, helping sub-suppliers. It was a very, very challenging job, but we managed. And in 1963, if I remember well, Abdel Nasser insisted that our trucks be in the military parade on the 23rd of July 1963. And we did it, and about 20 military trucks of our assembly and part production were in the parade, military parade, in 1963. at that time 53. That was a big challenge, but we did it. After that, from planning engineer, I went the escalator up till in late 1967, I was appointed as chairman and president of the company. At that time, the company had about 10,000 workers, and it was one of the biggest industrial companies in Egypt. And it was really the pride of Egypt, and every visitor from coming from Europe or America was invited to see the factory. All the top people of Europe and other places in the world came to see the factory. I remember one of them, Ceausescu, for example, at that time president of Romania, came to see the factory, Boumediene, and many others. I don't remember all of them. So in late 1967, I became the president of this company. And gradually I made a point to increase the production, and we started also to export our production to many Arab countries. Our first export deal was to Kuwait, where we succeeded in exporting 500 buses as the first deal, and then 100 buses more as the second deal. And then we also succeeded in exporting to Iraq, to Syria and Libya buses, and also to Iraq we succeeded in exporting 5,000 passenger cars, the 128, which was a big success car in Egypt. Well, over the years the company grew gradually till it became really one of the biggest companies in Egypt, and was doing very well. We made profit. We had about 12,000 workers, and was really the pride of the nation at that time. Now back to photography, because I am sure you are thinking of photography all the time. Well, I introduced photography in the company, and I made a committee from the workers who are also amateurs of photography, and encouraging them to make exhibitions within the company and outside. So I didn't forget at all photography. I started introducing this hobby in the clubs, sporting clubs in Cairo and Alexandria. And the first club was founded in a club in Cairo, and then a club in Alexandria, and now actually most of the sporting clubs in Cairo and Alexandria have committees for photography. So I didn't forget photography. And parallel to this, I founded a committee, or a committee. I called it Photography Salon of Egypt, with a number of amateurs joining it. We started with about 12 people, and they increased to about 25. the Salon of Photography of Egypt, and now is one of the leading committees for photography in Egypt, and we made many exhibitions in Egypt and outside Egypt. So, back to my work, I continued to be the president of the company. In 1982, I was appointed as president of the holding company for all engineering industries, including the Nasri company. So I was the president of the holding company, and at the same time I was appointed also president of the Federation of Egyptian Industry. At the same time.
You were the first Egyptian to head the conference of the international organization in Geneva, yeah?
Right.
Yeah.
This had to do with the Federation of Egyptian Industry, because as I told you, I was the president, I appointed president of the Federation of Egyptian Industry. As my job, I represented the Federation in the ILO conference, which is always held in June in Geneva, and also was appointed, not appointed, actually elected as board member of the ILO in Geneva. And in one of the conferences, I was elected president of the International Employers Organization. This is an international organization representing all employer organizations all over the world. And in that capacity, I appointed as president or one of the presidents in the international conferences, which is also held in June in Geneva in the ILO. And this is how I was the president of one of these conferences, which was a big, for Egypt it was a big success actually.